And you should have learned from your father. Destroyed half this city trying to protect one woman. Something shifts in Kang Sungjin's face. Chairman Lee continues quietly. I won't watch his son do it again. Click, the line dies. Hey besties, welcome back to another episode. Like, comment where you're watching from and subscribe. Let's get into the video. The room stays silent, then another voice, soft, sleep-heavy, calls out behind him. Sungjun. He turns. Naledi stands in the doorway in one of his shirts. Braids loose from sleep, eyes tired. I woke up and you weren't there. And for the first time since the call, his expression breaks enough for her to see fear. She steps toward him slowly. What happened? He looks at her for a long moment. The city below them keeps moving. Go home. She stops. What? I said go home, Naledi. Silence after that feels physical. Something shifts in her face. She takes one step forward, reaches for him carefully. Sungjun. He steps back. Have Junho take your things to the shop in the morning. Something crosses her face then, hurt trying very hard to remain dignified. This man held her like she was breakable 4 hours ago. Like she was the only thing worth holding carefully. He looked at her in the dark of his room with an expression so unguarded she thought, oh, he is actually mine. Now he is looking at her like distance can save them both. She stands in the doorway of his study in his shirt, barefoot, braids loose, and she understands one thing with the certainty of someone who has had things taken from her before. He is doing this on purpose. Okay, she says quietly and turns around, walks back upstairs and begins packing. Kang Sungjun stands in his study for a very long time afterward. The city below him keeps moving the way cities do, unconcerned. Continuous. He opens the top drawer. The photograph is there, his father. Young. Before power hardened him into something sharp and expensive. Before he learned that kindness was something men in their world could not afford. Standing beside a woman whose face Sungjun has been memorizing his whole life without understanding why. Jisoo, who's also known as Auntie Grace. Laughing at something off camera. He destroyed half this city trying to protect one woman. Sungjun puts the photo face down. 34 years. His father loved from a distance, and his mother disappeared quietly. Now Sungjun, standing in the exact same room, in the exact same city with the same file, with the same impossible weight, he hears it. A suitcase wheel on the floor upstairs. His jaw tightens. He goes to the guest room door, raises his hand to knock, stops, looks at his own fist against the wood, drops it, and walks away. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to support us and watch more videos like this. At exactly 7 a.m. his phone rings before he finishes his first coffee. Junho calls. Sir, prosecutors are here. Sungjun arrives at Kang Electronics in 12 minutes. The prosecutors are already inside, 15 of them, search teams moving through the building with the calm, unhurried confidence of people carrying warrants signed by judges who signed them days ago. Employees stand aside quietly. No one knows where to look. His legal director meets him at the entrance. Young, competent, face carefully blank except for the eyes which are saying, this is bad. They charged us with tax evasion. 3 counts. They want the electronics division servers and financial records from the last 5 years. Sungjun takes the warrant, reads it, filing date, 2 days ago, before the midnight call, before Naledi was sent away, before Lee called at midnight pretending to give a warning. This was never a warning, this was a schedule. And Sungjun arrived at midnight. Junho steps beside him quietly. Chairman Lee? I assume so. What do you want to do? Sungjun looks at his building for a very long moment, 15 men moving through it, documents being boxed, servers being copied, staff in the lobby typing furiously on silent phones, then, get me everything on Lee's financial structure. A pause. The last 15 years he wants a war, I'll give him one. Junho nods immediately, a beat. Naledi, Sungjun asks quietly. She's at the bakery, safe. Something flickers across Sungjun's face, gone immediately. Double the surveillance around the bakery. Junho pauses. Sir, I said double it. Junho studies his half-brother carefully. You think Chairman Lee will move directly? Men like him become dangerous when cornered. Sungjun buttons his jacket slowly. And I think he realized last night that I care about her. Love in their world is not soft. It is a door left open. It is a name someone else can use. One of the younger men near the elevator looks away immediately. Another mutters under his breath. That's bad. Sungjun hears it and says nothing. Because they're right. Naledi opens the bakery at 6. She didn't sleep properly. She lay in her apartment above the shop, her apartment, her bed, her space that smells like vanilla extract and old wood, and looked at the ceiling until the sky outside went from black to gray to the particular pale gold that means. Another day. whether you want it or not. She gets up, turns the sign, ties her apron and puts the first tray into the oven. The shop smells warm. Safe. Normal flour, butter, something cinnamon cooling on the rack. At 7:30 her phone buzzes. She sees a photograph of Damie, her ex-boyfriend, who almost ruined her. In handcuffs, 2 detectives beside him. His face blurry mid-turn like a man who finally realized consequences are real things that happen to real people including him. Naledi looks at the photo for a long time. Then sets the phone face down and goes back to the dough. No satisfaction, no relief, just exhaustion. But outside, a black sedan has been parked across the street for 43 minutes watching. By 11:18 a.m., the shop bell rings. Naledi looks up automatically. A man enters, mid-30s, dark coat, baseball cap pulled low. He doesn't look anywhere else. He looks directly at her with a cold gaze. Naledi stills slightly. "Can I help you?" The man walks slowly toward the counter. Naledi Dlamini. Every instinct in her body sharpens. Her hands stay still on the counter. Her voice stays even. "Who's asking?" The man smiles coldly. "Relax, I just came to look at the woman causing all this trouble." Her stomach tightens. The bakery suddenly feels too quiet. The morning regulars are there. A grandmother in the corner, 2 university students, a man reading a newspaper, normal, but her body is not reading normal. In the wrong shop. "Actually," he says softly, stepping closer, "I think your shop is exactly the problem." Back door opens. Junho walks in, 2 of Sungjin's men behind him. The atmosphere changes instantly, not loudly. The stranger glances at Junho, laughs once, unbothered. "There you are." Junho's expression hardens immediately. "What are you doing here?" "Just delivering a message." Naledi looks between them. Junho moves calmly beside the counter, positioning himself slightly in front of her without making it obvious. Protecting her without announcing it. The stranger notices that too. His eyes flick to Junho's placement. Back to Naledi. "Chairman Lee says your boss is becoming emotional." He tilts his head toward Naledi. "Now I see why." Junho's eyes go cold. "Leave." Man looks at Naledi one last time, something assessing in it, something that makes her feel like a variable in an equation. Then, "You should ask Kang Sungjin how many people got buried the last time he loved someone." He walks out. The bell above the door jingles softly behind him, too cheerful for what just happened. Naledi looks at Junho slowly. "Who was that?" Junho doesn't answer immediately, which is answer enough. "Naledi." His voice is careful now. "You shouldn't close alone tonight." Her jaw tightens. "Sungjin sent you." "Yes," a pause. "Actually, we're 7, the rest are outside." That lands. And for the first time since he sent her away, Naledi feels something worse than heartbreak, fear. 3 days later the media explodes. Unknown woman linked to Kang organization financial crimes. Her photograph everywhere, outside the bakery, outside the police station. Blurry images taken from a distance of Sungjin's car parked near the shop at night. Images she didn't know were being taken. Moments she didn't know were being watched. The comments are worse than the headlines. Gold digger. Foreigner. Mistress. Criminal. She gets a photo of them together. One she didn't know existed. Taken somewhere she doesn't remember. Angles that make everything look like something it wasn't. And in this photo she is laughing at something and he is looking at her, and whoever took this photo knew exactly what they were photographing. Evidence of attachment. Naledi reads 3 headlines before locking her phone, then keeps baking. Because her hands need something to do. Because the oven needs watching. Because 14 regular customers showed up this morning anyway, and one of them, the grandmother from the corner table, patted Naledi's hand and said, "The internet is full of fools. Your croissants are still the best in this neighborhood." Naledi held herself together until the grandmother left, then went to the back, stood against the wall for 2 minutes, breathed, and came back out. At 11 a.m. the shop bell rings again, this time Director Yoon, 50s. Sharp eyes. Government posture. The kind of woman who notices exits before conversations. She sits at the corner table. "Have whatever's good." Naledi wipes her hands slowly. "Everything's good." Director Yoon almost smiles. "Then surprise me." She stays an hour. Naledi brings her a honey cake with black sesame and a pot of roasted barley tea because she looks like a woman who prefers things without pretense. Director Yoon eats carefully. Watches more than she speaks. The bakery fills and empties around her. Morning customers give way to lunch crowd. The street outside goes from quiet to busy to quiet again. Director Yoon stays, then finally, "How long have you known Kang Sungjin?" Naledi looks at her steadily. "Why?" "Been investigating Chairman Lee for 3 years." Director Yoon stirs her tea once. And this morning I received an anonymous file. Naledi stills. Director Yoon reaches into her bag, places an envelope on the table, plain, white, sealed. Naledi's name on the front in handwriting she would recognize anywhere. It was Auntie Grace. Her chest tightens instantly. She looks at the envelope for a long moment without touching it. File came with one condition, Director Yoon says quietly, that you receive this before anyone else. Naledi stares at the envelope. Director Yoon stands, moves toward the door, then pauses with the particular deliberateness of someone who has planned their exit. Miss Naledi Dlamini. Naledi looks up. Whoever protected you understood exactly how dangerous these people are. A beat. And exactly how much Kang Sungjin cares about you. Then she leaves. Naledi opens the envelope with shaking fingers. Inside, a handwritten letter, 3 pages. Auntie Grace's handwriting, neat at the top, more urgent by the end. The handwriting of a woman who started calmly and couldn't stay that way. Naledi, by the time you read this, the charges against you should already be collapsing. I should have moved sooner. I kept waiting for the right moment and then realized there is no right moment for the right thing. You just do it. First, your bakery was never in danger of being taken from you. I own the building. Naledi freezes. She sits down on the stool behind the counter. The letter continues. I know what you're thinking. Yes, I lied. Because you would have refused my help if you knew you built that bakery yourself. Every recipe, every customer, every early morning when the rest of the city was still asleep. The building was never what made it yours. But I made sure nobody could take the roof from over your head while you were building it. Naledi presses her hand against her mouth, tears already gathering. She keeps reading. I hired an investigator after Sungjin mentioned your investor structure. I found the laundering accounts, the original shell corporations. The prosecutors have everything now, including evidence proving you knew absolutely nothing, which was true. But in their world, truth requires documentation. As for your ex-boyfriend, I saw the news. Personally, I think handcuffs were too kind. Naledi laughs short, wet, broken open at the edges, the kind of laugh that lives right next to crying, that impossible woman. The letter continues. Sungjin is going to try protecting you the same way his father protected me from a distance. He will tell himself it's love. That staying away keeps you safe, that the space between you is armor. It isn't. It's just loneliness wearing a responsible face. Do not let him. His father spent 30 years making that mistake. 30 years protecting me from a distance while he raised our son alone, while I changed my name and moved cities and watched him from a distance right back. And we were both so very responsible and so very alone. Don't let Sungjin make the same calculation. He is worth more than his father's fear. So are you. All my love, Auntie Grace. Naledi lowers the letter slowly. She sits behind the counter in the shop she built with her own hands, inside a building that a woman she called Auntie quietly bought and held open for her. Grace knew about the laundering before Naledi did. Grace knew about Sungjin before Naledi understood what was happening. Naledi wipes her face quickly, then reaches for her phone. But before she can dial, it rings. Junho. Chairman Lee is about to be arrested. Naledi stills. What? Junho exhales slowly on the other end. The exhale of someone who has been holding something for a very long time. Your Auntie Grace just started a war. The line goes quiet then, and Sungjin is about to finish it. Rainy Thursday, the kind of Seoul morning that doesn't apologize for itself. Kang Sungjin arrives at Lee's building at 9:15, no announcement. No appointment, Junho behind him. 4 men behind Junho, all in black, all done deciding. The lobby staff look up, nobody stops them. The elevator opens on the 42nd floor, and Sungjin walks toward the boardroom the way he walks toward everything, like he already owns it. Chairman Lee is waiting. So are 6 board members. Men who have spent decades learning to read a room before they open their mouths. They read this one and stay quiet. Lee watches Sungjin from the head of the table. You look tired. Sungjin closes the door behind him. I slept fine. He walks to the opposite end of the table and drops a thick file. The sound cuts through the room like a verdict. Chairman Lee glances at it. What is this? 15 years of your financial structure. Board members look at the file, then away, then at each other. Sungjin removes his gloves 1 finger at a time. Kang shipping containers, Busan ports, weapons, offshore cash, government payoffs. His voice stays even. My father found out, he ordered it stopped, and then you made sure he couldn't. Chairman Lee leans back slowly. Your father was many things. Moral was never one of them. But he was trying to become something better, and that threatened you more than anything he'd done before. Sungjin steps closer. So you leaked his roots, turned his allies, told rival groups he was weakening. Because a man choosing differently is dangerous to men who never will. Lee says nothing, which is answer enough. My father didn't destroy half this city protecting one woman. Sungjin's voice drops to something colder. He destroyed it because he realized too late that the enemy had been sitting beside him the whole time. Room is very still. Then Lee smiles, the smile of a man who has decided that if he is going to lose, he will at least lose honestly. There he is, quietly, almost with satisfaction. His father's son. He stands, moves around the table slowly, stops directly in front of Sungjin. He chose love over power. A pause. Look what it cost him. Sungjin doesn't move. Lee glances toward the window, Seoul spread out below them in gray rain, 42 floors down, indifferent and continuous. And here you are, risking everything over a girl with flour on her hands. Sungjin finally smiles. No, I'm ending this because you touched what's mine. Before Lee can answer, the boardroom doors open. Director Yoon walks in with prosecutors behind her. Financial Crimes Division. Arrest team. Warrants that have been 3 years in the making. The room erupts, chairs scraping, phones appearing, voices overlapping. Lee looks at Sungjin and realizes it too late. The conversation was never the plan. The conversation was the last 5 minutes of a plan already finished. Director Yoon sets the warrant on the table. Chairman Lee Minyu. Financial fraud, conspiracy, illegal offshore transactions, obstruction of federal investigation. Lee doesn't resist. Men like Lee have always known this moment existed somewhere ahead of them. They simply bet on it arriving after they were gone. He lost that bet. As the officers reach him, he steps close to Sungjin one last time and says quietly, quiet enough that only Sungjin hears, "When she becomes your weakness, will you ruin this city to protect her too?" The officers pull him away. The doors close. Silence, rain against the glass. Director Yoon looks at Sungjin carefully. You could have buried this privately. He keeps his eyes on Seoul. My father already tried that. She nods once and leaves with her team. Junho approaches quietly and waits. Sungjin doesn't turn around. Find me a flight to Busan. The sea in Busan is different, bigger, less contained. The kind of sea that doesn't apologize for taking up space. Sungjin stands outside a small house on a steep street with a garden that someone tends with serious intention. He has stood here twice before. Both times he left without knocking. This time he knocks. Jisoo opens the door, looks at him for a moment, and steps aside. He goes in. Her house is nothing like the places he grew up in, small, warm, books on every surface. A kitchen that smells like garlic and something slow cooking. A window looking out over the gray-blue sea where a fishing boat moves in the distance like punctuation at the end of a long sentence. She makes tea without asking if he wants any. He sits at her kitchen table and watches her and thinks, I have been memorizing photographs of this woman my whole life. She is nothing like the photographs. The photographs showed the woman his father loved. The woman standing at this stove is the one who survived. She puts the tea in front of him and sits across from him. Arrested Lee. Yes. 15 years is long enough to wait. He looks at the table. I'm sorry it took this long. Don't apologize for your father's choices. Her voice is even. We're a child. Silence settles between them, not uncomfortably. The silence of two people who have waited a long time to be in the same room and are not yet sure how to fill it. He knew about you, Sungjin says. About me, and he stayed away anyway. Was afraid. Jisoo wraps both hands around her cup. He called it protection because that's a word men in that world can live with. But protection and fear are not the same thing, and he never quite learned the difference. Something tightens in Sungjin's face. She watches him the way she must have once watched his father looking for the thing underneath the thing. You sent her away, she says. He doesn't answer. Grace's girl, Naledi, you sent her away to keep her safe. Lee had already made her a target. Made everyone your father loved a target. That didn't stop your father from choosing distance over honesty every single time. She sets her cup down. You know how it ended for him, you know how it ended for me, and you did it anyway. Kitchen is very quiet. Sungjin looks at her steadily. If they know I care about her, they will use her. Everything I feel for her is a door someone else can walk through. Jisoo says simply. That's true, and your father knew it too. So he made every decision alone and told himself he was keeping me safe, and I spent 30 years not understanding why he disappeared. I changed my name. I moved city, and we were both so responsible and so completely alone. Her voice stays flat, not cold, just worn smooth by the number of times she has had to say this. The mistake he made was not loving me. The mistake was never letting me stand beside him. He protected me like I was glass, and it cost us everything. Sungjin is quiet for a long moment. Outside, the fishing boat moves slowly through the gray-blue water. Lee asked me tonight if I'd destroy this city the way my father did, he says. Jisoo waits. I told him I didn't know. She almost smiles. That's the most honest thing I've heard a Kang man say. She reaches across the table and covers his hand with hers briefly. She built something with her own hands in a city that didn't know her name. She walked into your world through a wrong address and stayed standing. She is not glass, Sungjin. A pause. Go stand beside her, not in front of her, not at a safe distance with guards posted outside, beside her. She lets go of his hand. Go fix it. He stays 2 hours. They talk about small things, her plants, her neighbors, the fishing boat outside that she has privately named in a language she learned when she was in hiding. They talk about his father without anger. Just honestly. The way you speak about someone who mattered and failed you once you have finally made peace with both things being true at once. Before he leaves, she holds his face in her hands. She is shorter than he expected. He realizes he has never been properly held by her, not in any way that counted. You look like him, she says quietly, then. But you feel different. She pats his cheek once. Go. On the train back to Seoul, Junho sits across from him and pretends to read emails, after a long while without looking up. She kept the bakery open through all of it, every day. The grandmother who comes every morning brought 3 friends the day after the headlines broke. Said she was making a point. Sungjun watches the Korean countryside pass in green and gray through the rain-streaked window. Thought you should know, Junho says. Sungjun says nothing. But something in his expression shifts and stays shifted for the rest of the ride. Peaceful. Evening, the bakery sign is turned. The display case is empty and clean. The lights in the front are dim, but there is still light in the back. He stands on the pavement outside and looks at it for a moment. No Junho, no guards, no strategy. Just him and the glass and the city moving behind him. He knocks. Naledi comes out of the back with flour on her hands. She sees him through the glass and her face moves through several things quickly before it settles into something careful and composed. She opens the door but doesn't step aside. Bakery's closed. I know, I came to talk. She holds his gaze for a moment, then moves aside and lets him in. He sits at the counter. She stays behind it, the space between them deliberately chosen. She doesn't make him wait. Packed me off in the middle of the night like I was a problem you were containing, she says. Her voice is steady, not raised. The voice of someone who has already done the hard work of deciding what she needs to say. You made a decision about my safety and didn't think to include me in it. I woke up in your shirt in your house, and 4 hours later you were looking at me like I was something you needed to move out of the way. He meets her eyes. You're right. I know I'm right. What I need to know is whether you understand why it mattered. Because you're not something to be managed, he says. Because I treated protecting you like a problem to solve instead of a conversation to have. Because I did exactly what my father did and dressed it up in a different name and told myself it was care when it was control. He says it plainly, without flinching. I went to Busan. I saw Jisoo, your Auntie Grace. Something shifts in Naledi's face. She told me what 30 years of distance looks like from the other side. What it feels like to be kept safe by someone who never once asked what you needed. He looks at his hands on the counter. I don't want that. I don't want to be the man who loves you perfectly from a distance and calls it noble while you stand alone wondering why. Bakery is very quiet around them. I don't know how to do this the right way, he says. I've spent my whole life standing in front of the people I care about, between them and whatever's coming. It's the only language I know. A pause, but I would like to learn a different one, if you'll let me. Naledi looks at him for a long time. Going to get scared again, she says finally. And when that happens, the first thing your mind will reach for is distance because that's what feels like safety to you. I need you to reach for me instead. I know. Guards outside my window. Not Junho with a photograph and no explanation. Me, in the room, told the truth. I know, he says. I'm asking you to hold me to that. She is quiet for a moment longer. Then something in her face settles, not softness exactly, but resolution. The look of someone making a decision they have already made and are simply now acknowledging. Okay, she says. He crosses the counter and holds her in the dim light of the closed shop with flour already on his jacket from her hands and the smell of the whole long day around them. After a while she says, against his shoulder, Auntie Grace owned the building. I found out because I wanted to buy it, but the owner refused to talk or negotiate. She pulls back to look at him. You knew. I did some digging. Naledi is quiet for a moment, and then she laughs, short and disbelieving and wet at the edges and entirely real. Wrong address, she says. Delivery that day was genuinely wrong, he says immediately. Auntie Grace mentioned you before we met, several times. A pause. Naledi closes her eyes. She always talked about a son of hers, always worried about recognizing him if they ever meet. I never would have thought he was the most dangerous man in Seoul. That is an accurate summary, yes. She laughs again, longer this time. Fuller. The kind of laugh that has nothing strategic in it at all. He watches her laugh in his arms in the bakery she built, and his expression is so completely unguarded that Junho, parked across the street at Sungjin's own instruction, looks away and finds something very interesting to read on his phone. 6 months later. The bakery is busier now. Not because of the headlines, those dissolved the way media scandal always does, loud and then suddenly gone, leaving only the faint residue of a story people half remember and never quite understood. It is busier because of the grandmother, who brought 3 friends, who each brought 2 more, who claimed the corner tables on weekday mornings and stayed too long and argued recipes with Naledi in ways that were mostly compliments. Also the sesame honey cake got written up somewhere reputable. Also the croissants, buttery, architectural, deeply unreasonable, developed the kind of following that means people cross 3 neighborhoods before 7 in the morning. Jisoo visits in October. She arrives on a Tuesday with a bag of citrus from her garden, and she stands in the doorway of the bakery for a moment taking everything in, the warmth of it, the noise, the customers, the way Naledi's whole face changes the moment she looks up and sees her. Then she sits at the corner table and says, "I'll have whatever's good." Naledi laughs. "Does Director Yoon know you have a type?" Jisoo settles primly into her chair. "Director Yoon has many types." Sungjin comes at closing now, several times a week. He sits at the counter while Naledi cleans, and they talk about everything, and nothing with the specific quality of 2 people who have discovered that ordinary conversation at the end of a long day is actually quite extraordinary if you have spent your whole life in rooms where no one speaks without a reason behind it. He has gotten better at beside. Not perfect. There are still moments, a difficult deal, a morning that starts badly, something he cannot immediately control, where she watches his jaw set in a particular way and knows he has retreated somewhere inside himself to build walls. She makes tea when she sees it, says simply, "Talk," and he does, badly sometimes, in the halting way of someone learning a language they were never taught and have no real framework for, but he does it. He stays in the room and uses words instead of distance, and that, she has decided, is enough to build on. Junho still arrives first. There are still men outside, 2 now, not 6. Junho pointed out that 6 was an emotional overcorrection. Sungjin told him he had not asked for his opinion. There are 2 men outside, and that is where the conversation ended. One evening in November, Jisoo is at the corner table when Sungjin walks through the door. He stops. She looks at him. He looks at her. 34 years pass between them across a room that smells like cardamom and the end of a good day. Then he crosses to her table and sits down, and she reaches over and pats his hand once, the way she might have done when he was small if circumstances had been different, and he doesn't move it away. Naledi watches from behind the counter and feels something in her chest that is too large and too full to name properly. She goes back to the oven. She gives them that. Later, Jisoo gone, last customer gone, chairs on tables, Seoul doing what it always does outside. Sungjin is still at the counter, working nominally, really just being in the room, which she has learned is something he does when he doesn't want to leave. When the room feels like something worth staying in. "Your mother likes the sesame cake," Naledi says. "She likes you," he says without looking up from his documents. "She likes that I'm not alone." Naledi is quiet for a moment. "Are you going to Busan for Chuseok?" He looks up. "I thought we could go together. Mom and Jisoo will both be there. It would be practical to combine it." Sungjin. He stops. She is looking at him with the particular patience of someone who has learned exactly when he is hiding behind logistics. Something in his face opens up. "Asking you to meet my mother," he says. "Properly, as the person I'm with." Naledi smiles, slow and full, the kind of smile that has nothing behind it except itself. "Yes," she says. Outside, Seoul moves unconcerned. Continuous traffic on the bridge, rain coming in from the east. A fishing boat somewhere in the harbor that Jisoo named quietly in a language no one else knows. Inside the bakery, 2 people at the end of a long and complicated day. Which is to say, the beginning of everything else. Wrong address, the right place. We have come to the end, besties. See you in the next story. Drop a comment if you love this video.